Now I'm going to take a quick look forward into the mindset aspects to come later on, and I want you to really lean in now and see how some simple pieces of technique and focus can exponentially grow your profit, because it is possible. Believe it. Believe in yourself. Now in this section, I'm going to show you how even a small change can dramatically increase your profitability. So here's to earning an efficient profit, and here's to enjoying more of life that comes as a result of that profit giving us more choices in our lives. So let's see how straightforward it really can be to understand how we might create a simple but effective framework to achieve that. Ultimately, we'll be looking to use the framework to help us create an efficient profit. But first things first, making a profit doesn't have to be difficult. I can almost hear the cheering from here. We all like that idea, don't we? A simple way to make a profit. How easy can we make it? All too often, we make it harder than we need to because we find ourselves trying to do all the things, when in actual fact, you're going to find out there's only 3 things we need to be focused on. You just have to be deliberate and focused about your actions and have a system and a plan to follow. And that's what the Profitlevers system is designed to give you. So, head on over to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Jason A. Withers and grab yourself a copy of the download in the pinned post there. Now, in that pinned post and in that download, you're going to find all the detail that I'm going to run you through now, where it's laid out with some great examples to help you see how this methodology actually comes to life. Now, for all of the I don't like numbers people out there, unfortunately we do have to deal with some financial fundamentals. It's unavoidable, I'm afraid. But at the initial stage, as you will see in that download, we use pictures, not numbers, to illustrate the 2 most important things that I need you to retain in your mind. And let's face it, we all prefer pictures, don't we? Than that classic spreadsheet that we always get presented with. Now, in that download, you're going to see that there is a really simple image of a profit and loss account, and it contains just 8 words. That is all that it takes to outline a profit and loss account. In actual fact, it's only 7 words when you consider that the word profit is repeated. See, it's simpler already. Now, you'll just have to bear with me here, because the reality of this is it's clearly easier to visualise. So once again, I suggest head on over, facebook.com, Jason A. Withers, grab that download in the pinned post and take your time to go through the examples in there. I'm going to talk you through them now, but it will all make great sense to you once you actually get a copy of that download in front of you and take a look through it. So, most importantly, it's time to forget that blurry mess that your accountant shows you at the end of the year for now. This simple image is all we need to remember for now. We need to commit the image to memory, however, and it will be the thing that you come back to for guidance time and again in the future. Remember, simplicity, not overcomplication, is what we're striving for here. We do have to have a look at some terminology though, and we do need to make sure that we understand the terminology. Now don't worry if you're listening in here live today, don't panic. We do have descriptions of all of these things actually laid out for you within that download, but I'm going to run through them for you now anyway. Now the top line on that profit and loss account says sales. Now this is also often referred to as revenue or turnover, and is the amount invoiced to clients for your goods or services. All pretty straightforward. We hear people talk about sales all the time online. Then we come to the next line down in our P&L account, direct costs. Now this is also referred to as cost of goods sold, and these are the costs that relate specifically to a sale. Now, this can typically include a direct labour element as well as a cost attributed to materials or production costs. Now, margin is direct costs are a fundamental part of margin, and we will be getting into that in future episodes, and certainly in more detail within the Profitlevers group community on Facebook. Now, when we take sales and we take those direct costs away, we're left with gross profit. Now that's a calculation. Sales minus direct costs equals gross profit. But the other thing that comes with that is a thing called gross margin. That's also a calculation, and it's expressed as a percentage. Now that is a calculation which looks like gross profit divided by sales equals gross margin. Now the gross margin expresses the amount of gross profit which we earn as a percentage of sales. This allows us to track and compare our gross profitability from month to month, quarter to quarter, and year to year on a comparable basis. So as our business grows and presumably our sales increase over time, it means that we have a way to ensure that we don't lose profitability just because we end up increasing our sales. Now, as counterintuitive as that may sound, quite often we find that we take on more labour than we need to service those sales. We start spending more money on introducing costs that we don't really need, but because we're selling more, we think we should be spending more. So sometimes we find that our gross margin actually can decline as our sales increase, and that's something that we clearly have to watch out for. And our gross margin percentage allows us to keep track of that. Now, underneath gross profit, we have our overheads, also often referred to as expenses. And these are the everyday expenses which are incurred in the running of the business that don't relate specifically to a sale. And examples of this for those in brick and mortar world would include rent, utilities, but can easily, for online entrepreneurs, include travel or bank charges, stationery, subscriptions. Those sorts of things would be categorised within there. So we've got sales less our direct costs gives us our gross profit. Gross profit less our overheads gives us our net profit. So the calculation for net profit is gross profit minus overheads equals net profit. And that's it. The 8 words: sales, direct costs, gross profit, overheads, net profit. There we are. That's it. The entirety of a profit and loss account at its top line level. So when we look at that simple image of a P&L account, we can see there are actually very few headline elements that we need to consider. So when we break it down, we can see that there are only ever 3 things that you need to consider to improve your profitability. So here we go. Welcome to the 3 profit levers: sales, margin, and overhead. They're the only 3 things that we need to focus on when we're considering how to improve profitability in our businesses. It's amazing, isn't it? We spend all this time working so hard, hustling at this, hustling at that, trying to get this thing done, trying this thing out, when in actual fact, if we had a simple framework, we could be dedicated in our effort and intentional in our effort to make sure that we are addressing very, very discreetly one of those 3 elements: sales, margin, or overhead. Now, here's the clever bit. If we move any one of those 3 profit levers in the right direction whilst keeping the other 2 constant at their existing level, that alone will improve our profitability. Now, the second image that you're going to find in that download at facebook.com/Jason A. Withers in that pinned post, that second image is the one that you need to remember, because it's going to illustrate this point. If we can increase sales, keep margin and overhead constant, we will increase our profitability. If we increase our margin but keep sales and overhead constant, we will increase our profitability. And finally, if we decrease our overhead but keep our sales and margin constant, we will increase our profitability. Simple really, isn't it? There's just no need to overcomplicate things, and we spend so much time trying to do exactly that, thinking we need to be doing more all the time in a way that we just don't. So if we apply this simple technique consciously within our business, we can be certain that we will be on track to increase profitability in the most efficient way for our business. Now remember, that means you'll be on track to create a greater impact and level enjoyment in your business and personal life, and indeed socially, if you choose social enterprise as part of your business model. It probably is ultimately going to mean you're going to be having more fun too. Let's face it, more profit, more choices. What do you want to spend your time doing? So I can bet you're really looking for some mathematical proof, and that's contained for you in that download as well. So you're going to find in that download, I'm going to run through a numerical example to give you the mathematical proof. So make sure that you do go and check it out, because I understand that at this stage the model sounds too simple, when in actual fact it is exactly the thing that I used to get a turnaround done in that builder's merchant 25 years ago. Now, in this example, it shows how a movement of just 2 units in each profit lever translates to a 20% increase in profit, just by moving any one profit lever whilst keeping the other 2 constant. Now, bear in mind, we all have different business models, and we will all have different things that affect us at different points in time in our business. So, the business model that you see is an example. You can easily apply your own numbers and create your own model and find out exactly what a move of 2 units would do in your business. If you need help finding these numbers, ask your accountant, ask your bookkeeper to supply them for you, but you'll be able to do the simple piece of maths that you need to, just following what's in that download. Now, in that example, we only moved one profit lever at a time, and we saw how the profit increased by 20%. Now, just imagine the possibilities for your profitability if you moved all 3 profit levers at the same time by those 2 units. Now, what you'll find is that small changes in each of the 3 areas will accumulate to something that is much greater than the apparent sum of the parts. Now, in each of the above examples, where we moved each of the profit levers by that small amount of 2 units, in that particular model, that was equivalent to an increase in sales of 2%, or a reduction in cost of goods sold of 4%, or a reduction in overheads of 5%. But in each case, we ended up with a 20% increase in profit. Now, that is a spectacular increase for such a small change. And that was only in one profit lever at a time. So, here's my message. Trust the method and the process. Don't be overwhelmed by the idea that you have to think big to start with or try to do all the things at once. Just focus initially on delivering against some small changes in each of the 3 areas, and you will be far more profitable than you are currently. Absolutely guaranteed. Now, what do I mean by think big? Thinking big is really about trying to think of too many different things and trying to do them all at once. And this, again, it brings us back to this point of overcomplication. We don't need to do that. We're going to look at something here when I talk to you now about, so what does it take to double your profit? Now, when you think about growing your business, think about this. Would you back yourself to increase your sales by 5% next year, for example? Now, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say, of course you would. As a passionate and dedicated entrepreneur, you're going to tell me that you think that 5% will be a breeze. What's the point of being in business if you can't manage a 5% increase in sales? So, what does it take to double your profit? Because at the end of the day, that's a bit sexier than just a 20% increase, right? And we all want to find those 2 times, 5 times, 10 times examples of things in our lives. So, in the download, you're going to see that using that same example business model that we used in that starting example, we're going to look at what happens when we apply a 5% change to each profit lever, and what happens when we apply them at the same time. I.e., we're going to see a model where we increase sales by 5%, at the same time as we decrease those cost of goods sold by 5%, and we decrease our overhead by 5%. Now, you'll see in that model when you download it, that's actually going to get us pretty close to doubling. It actually gives us a 95% increase in profit. Just by applying 3 5% changes, we can see that we'll get a huge uplift in profit. In fact, in that particular business model example, all we actually needed to do to create the doubling of profit was increase the sales percentage to 5.5% and leave the other 2 at 5%. That really was all that it would take in that business model. Now, as I say, you can work it out in your own